because there's some times where we still get stuck, even in our office, with patients and with clinical cases, and like we can all just come from a different, fresh perspective of like how can we get to the real pinpoint of creating health for this person or for that kid.
All right, chiropractors and chiropractic students, welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. You know, the one you've been waiting way too long for, because this podcast will actually stay focused on chiropractic. Not only what it takes to get world-class clinical results for kids and families in your community, but also what it takes to build a legendary, incredible family practice that takes care of your family way beyond your dreams. I'm Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be joined by Dr. Matt Hill, Dr. Ellie Wright, Jackie Jacobowitz, and incredible guests, chiros, associates, CAs, all these folks making massive impact around the world. We're going to cover everything: pediatrics, perinatal, family practice. This is the podcast you've been waiting for, because moms and dads and families have always needed us. Now they're finally ready for us. I hope you're ready for the Family Practice Podcast. Let's go.
Hey, chiros and students, it's your co-host, Dr. Matt Hill. Today's episode is an absolutely must listen. More and more chiropractors are realizing that owning their practice isn't the only way or even the best path to success. And what a paradigm shift this is for all of us that have went to school and been told, hey, you've got to own your business. Yet there's still this unspoken rule in our profession, in the schools, that if you're not the owner, you're not set up to achieve success. But what if that's just not fully the case? The reality is that many chiropractors step into ownership, not because they truly want to, but because of this paradigm, because they feel like they have to. And the weight of it, it can be crushing, right? There's the business to run, there's administration work, the payroll, the team, all of these things that you never got taught in school. And some people aren't called to do that. And instead of getting to be a chiropractor, serving, adjusting families the clinical way, it's easy to get buried in the business logistics. So if your heart isn't into that side of it, this podcast is for you. Because right now, inside of Facebook groups, at seminars, in student conversations, the same discussion keeps coming up. Is owning a practice the only way to have a fulfilling chiropractic career? And today, we're bringing you an answer that could completely shift your mindset. So if you are a chiropractic student feeling the pressure of opening your own practice, or maybe even a current owner that is drowning in responsibilities you're finding that you never wanted, this episode is for you. We are sitting down with the one, the only Dr. Dylan Roy. He's a chiropractor who did what most think they should do: open his own dream practice, only later to realize that his true calling wasn't in ownership, but it was more being a clinical doc, focusing on that side and moving into an associate role. So this episode is about, really interviewing him and finding his insights about it, but also breaking the stigma, giving you the permission to take a career path that aligns with your passion. And this could not be more true, because the more and more students I talk to, it's a third of the room wanted to associate. Now it's 2/3 of the room want to associate. So that paradigm is shifting, and Dr. Dylan is living proof that there is another way. He started out just like so many other chiropractors, excited, ambitious, ready to make an impact. But once he stepped into ownership, it was clear that, there was a lot to this. And I think through his story, you are going to find that there is another way. And he didn't hold himself back. So proud to see him and see how far he's come in his own personal journey, and really excited to interview him today. Dr. Dylan, welcome to the Family Practice Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Man, this is a conversation that could go a lot of different ways, but I want you to talk through your chiropractic journey, because I think everyone listening, they have a chiropractic journey, and a lot of what their story looks like is what leads them to do what they do. Mm-hmm. So what's that journey that led you to want to open your own practice initially?
Yeah. So kind of for me was more starting out with sports. And that's what got me into chiropractic early on in my childhood and even teenage years. And that's what I went to chiropractic school for. And then started learning more about the principles of chiropractic and what that looked like, and the holistic aspect of that. And just then the power of the nervous system and the power of the body, and how chiropractic really helps complement that to just being able to optimally function, and really seeing that. And a big thing for me too was like my parents both have had major surgeries on their necks from car accidents or just from injuries and things like that, and just seeing that those surgeries were not successful, and then kind of even more so going that route into just serving adults more so as well, into that. And that started at school with just getting more into just the kind of the science behind the neurology of that and really being interested in that, but not quite fully understanding the business side. And so got really involved in what's called AMPed, and their Jumpstart program, which is phenomenal, with just having to open just the business side, the kind of leasing side, all those different things that you just are not taught in school about business whatsoever at all. So that really helped kind of just create a little bit more clarity and just the more kind of pursuance of wanting to open an office to being able to create something big, you know?
So you're kind of doing this on the fly. You're like,
Yeah,
I've always
yeah.
wanted to be a chiropractor. I have this story. I've been helped. I'm seeing how this is really the root cause. But then the business side of it, you're like, well, I guess I'll just fly by the seat of my pants. Kind of like, right, the first 2 trimesters in chiropractic school, right? You're like, I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll figure it out.
Exactly.
At what point when you were, and I guess this could be a long-ranged answer, but at what point did you start to feel like, this is a lot tougher than I thought, and it might not be aligned with what I want as the right fit for me for the long term?
Yeah. I would say probably immediately out of the gate, honestly. There was just like, I had a plan. Obviously I had a plan. Everything was laid out. But then it was implementing the plan. It was talking to banks, getting shut down by banks, going different routes to really open an office and get that money to be able to do those things as well. And it was really just like, I think where the biggest pressure came in was doing that all alone. Like I moved to a place I didn't know anybody at, or anywhere in that area, miles and miles away from my home, family, and things like that, which is what I wanted to do. But it was more so just like doing that all by myself. And that was kind of the leading kind of theme throughout practice for 5 years, of just kind of been doing it all by myself as well.
Well, I love you said that, because I want everyone listening to really hear that, is you did this for 5 years. So you were very successful. You were, growing the business, thriving in the business. I know you transitioned to more of a, neuro-focused model 2 years in, where you joined PX. And so the office was thriving. And so it really went through that. Like you said, initially you felt that way, but then you kept going for 5 years. Like, how was that 5 years in your practice?
Yeah. It was just, I would say it was fun. But it was also difficult because a lot of those years were through COVID. I opened up 6 months before COVID, so that didn't help any at all. And we were just getting ready to really boom, and then everything shut down for a little bit, and then everybody got really nervous. It was helpful that we were kind of in an area where people weren't totally freaked out by that, but at the same time, it didn't really help either as well.
I can't imagine that. You being, Boise, Idaho, or, new to Boise, you're there, and then you're expected to do the marketing, the community connections. And they're like, oh yeah, by the way, everything in person went away.
Exactly.
And hopefully, maybe it wasn't as bad in that region. But still, like, that's a massive, massive struggle for ownership. So yeah, that 5 years probably felt like 10.
Because we thrived off of screening events, weekends, every weekend. So like that went completely away.
Man, so this is a question where you probably have a lot of answers to this, but what were some of the biggest challenges, if you could nail it down to 1 or 2 things, that ultimately led you to your decision to change and to sell and to move on? What were those things?
I think it was just the exhaustion, like still like small team, not very reliable team. Not that they were bad. It just was like stepping up in responsibility and always just still having to try to micromanage, even when I didn't want to micromanage, and growing through that. That was probably the biggest thing, was just like finding team members. And it was just so hard because I was still doing so much of the admin work. I was still doing so much of the marketing work, and that was taking away from the clinical piece as well, right? Because that was there too, but it just wasn't as much there.
Yeah.
So I would say it was more so just like how everything was still on me, and we weren't able to grow as a team because of that as well.
It's perfect that you said that, because there's that messy middle in practice, right? It's where, and a lot of docs, if you have a practice and you're listening to this, it's that point where you've really probably had fun opening it, and you're starting to hit some volume. You're starting to feel good about it. You're like, man, we're really thriving. And then you're like, okay, well, I want to grow past this point. And well, what does that take? It takes more team.
Yeah.
It takes more systems. It takes you probably pulling back and being like, okay, well, this is going to be a new phase to this practice, an investment phase in leadership and all these things. And not that, you can't do that. You're an awesome leader. We'll talk about that with what the role you're in right now as an associate. But there's really that messy middle that you have to break through that. And it makes total sense that it's just not right for everybody, because I think you said it best, you're on your own, right? You're on your own, and you're like, okay, is this really my dream with it? Did you ever struggle with when you got to that point where you're like, you know what, here's where we are. I'm successful. I'm not really as motivated to continue with it. Do you ever feel like you were maybe stepping down or like giving up, essentially becoming an associate?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. There's a lot of humility in it, for sure, which I was like, it was just hard to accept, but by the grace of God, like just praying through that really helped. And just like knowing that I would be stepping into something where I can use that clinical excellence that I've been learning and have learned through the past, and just focusing on that and 10xing that even more so. And that's really what has happened since coming to PwC and joining the team as well.
So I want to talk through this, because I think so much of this there's a stigma to it, right? Because really we shouldn't feel like, it's a bad thing to step down. Like we shouldn't feel like it's giving up. We shouldn't feel like that. What was, I guess you would say in your mind that influenced that made you feel that way in moving into the associate role?
Yeah. So like maybe a little bit of just like the pressure to even owning a practice was kind of there before that, of like, oh, I have to do this to be successful. And that was the measurement of success, like entrepreneurship. That was kind of the like time of wave of like where everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? So that was the biggest thing right there. And then it was just like, okay, well, I just have to accept like this isn't just going the way that I planned, and I think it's time to make a change. And then I get this message, and I've been asked to associate for other people as well, but just didn't feel like it was the right timing, mainly because I didn't want to quit, or have that mindset of quitting. But then Tony reached out one time, and I was just like, all right, I think this might be the actual right time to step back and change,
I love that. I love that you were honest there and said that, because I've been there before. Again, Dr. Dillon and I work together, and we're a very team-based practice, but very much so when you go back to when you're in chiropractic school, there's a high emphasis placed on entrepreneurship. And in a way, it's hey, like, this is exciting. This is the most successful. This is I run a clinic that is this many $1 million. I run a clinic that sees this many visits, right? And those get to be very important numbers for our own psyche. Like it or not, that, they shouldn't be, right? We should place our value on that. But we start to measure it within chiropractic that those are important. And so I think it's awesome that you had to sit on that a little bit, because I think anyone who's in an associate role has to sit on that a little bit and say, okay, why am I, why maybe do I feel that way? Or why am I stepping into this role and not feel like it's as successful? Because, entrepreneurship's entrepreneurship, right? And I think we're the only profession that really looks at it as such, right? You look at a dentist office and you see, oh, there's two associates as a dentist's office. And they're like, oh, they're both equally owners or clinical managers, whatever they are. We don't question it, right? But in the chiropractic world, it's like, oh, there's an owner up here, and then there's their associates, right? And some of that, obviously, there's cultural cultural things that have happened that are built into it because of, let's be honest, like not all owner docs take care of their associates. Not all associateships are set up the same. So that brings me into when Dr. Tony talked to you and he said, and again, Dr. Tony, the other co-host of this podcast, and he gave you that opportunity. What was your feeling like then when you heard that? When you're like, okay, this might be different and it might change some of these preconceived notions that I thought.
Yeah. I think it was just like his little message of just how much value he saw in me, I think that was the biggest thing. Cause like going back to like school and like you said, we have the owners and then we have the associates. And I think that was a big driver of like out of school is like, man, people do not take care of their people in their offices in a way. Right. And I think that was the kind of the big stigma that kind of leads a lot of students to fearing that they shouldn't open or they shouldn't go and do an associateship. They should just open their own office. They can be the owner, they can be the boss, they can be in control and set whatever rules they want for them. And that may just not be the ultimate formula for success because that's out of fear, right? So I think it was more so like him reaching out and just like showing that he sees me like and knows that I'm like capable of stepping into something like that as well, and just showing value and to just being able to be a part of a very high successful and experienced excellent team as well.
I have 4 kids and I'm always telling them that, when they say one bad thing, it takes, 7 to 10 things to make up for that, right? Probably even more than that. So like when they're going at each other, it's like, okay, they're getting a lot of the negative, but it's like, okay, well then let's build that up with the positive. And I think that's so true in this conversation, right? Is you hear from one person, the negative of, oh, don't do that. Don't be an associate because of this, this, and this. And I still remember those conversations in chiropractic school or with other coaching organizations or things like that. And so then it takes probably multiple times of a doc like Tony or other docs calling you and being like, hey, like there's more to it than this. Yeah. There's a ton of value in your clinical skills. It's okay to not have to be that entrepreneur. It's okay to not run payroll. It's okay to not do these things. And it sounds kind of crazy that we're talking about that because how many business owners out there that are entrepreneurs in any other profession would be like, shoot, take this away from me.
Yeah.
Like the last thing I want to do is run the payroll, have the HR conversations, do all those, tough things, figure out the profit and loss statements, all that. So many entrepreneurs would give that up in this world, or businesses that even fail for that matter, to be focused on the one thing. And that's really what you were able to do because you took the opportunity for it. And I want to talk a little bit about that because you stepping in, I'm going to change that from stepping down, stepping into this role, obviously was a challenge. And you don't have to share all the details here, but for the docs that, maybe feel like they're in a practice, they're in this messy middle, they're not sure it's the right fit for them. What were some of your action steps that you had to do that made you feel like, okay, this is actually possible for me to be a neurologically focused chiropractor without owning my own office?
Yeah. So you're talking about like steps to get to an associate role from ownership?
Yeah, I would even say, I guess to clarify that question is, when did you fully break away where that mindset could break away? We were like, okay, I'm ready to pull the trigger. Like I'm ready to pull the trigger. And then what did your action look like to really change that, to transition from that to an associateship?
Yeah. I would say like, it's funny how it just all works, and it's all God timing as well within that. I had scheduled 2 conferences out here with you guys as well. So team and leadership, we were talking through that. That was a big piece right before Tony reached out to me as well. And just like the culture of having a team, all those things and seeing your guys' team and not really comparing because it's a bigger team versus a smaller team, but just that culture and that mission mindset behind that really kind of set the tone of like, okay, we're not there, like, and it's taking a lot of work to even get there, going through teeth and nails to get to that point as well. And that's kind of where the humility kind of piece came into that, where I was like, okay, like you just like, this just may not be who God called you to be is an owner for the rest of your life, basically. And then it took a couple other just experiences through some of the trainings, through PX trainings, and then just the communication with my team back in Boise as well, and just going through that and just seeing that it was just up and downs. And then at that point again, we lost another team member through that time, and I was just like, all right, well, I think this is time now. I think this is time, and I just felt at peace about that too. Like just like getting on the phone with Tony, with Christina, and really talking through what that looks like to transition over, just made things a little bit easier to getting that clarification on what that would look like too.
It's doors open, right? Like doors open where they should. What advice would you give to chiropractors who feel that way, who feel like maybe they should own, but they've really thought about it and they actually don't want to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say there's no pressure in owning. Like you can be like we going back to our previous conversation, you can be just as successful. Like you look at yourself, Dr. Matt, like as someone who's associate, like you can be just as successful in your clinical experience and clinical excellence as being an associate comparison to being an owner, and how like there's less pressure in that too, measuring up to that, if that makes sense.
It does. I think, and I think you're right on, because you can't limit yourself with whatever role you're in. And I'll ask you a couple questions on that too, but really it's okay. We're not becoming something to say that's it. Right. And we don't do that in anything we do, right? Like, and who's to say that, you're going to be an associate and you're tied to just this?
Right.
There's still growth opportunities. And I think that's where we get into, who are you working alongside and who's leading you? You mentioned, Dr. Tony and joining our team at PwC. And I think, for anyone having this question of maybe feel like they should own, but like don't actually want to, or don't know where to go, it's very important that you join a team that's congruent and growth oriented. Because an associateship is not somewhere where you're going to get stuck. You should not get stuck there. It should be a growth opportunity for you, for your practice, for your patients. Because here's the truth: if you're not growing, something else is happening. You're not, right? They say you're not growing, you're dying, right? And so you should be growing in every single role. And that's what it's been awesome to see you do within this last, I'm going to butcher, is it year and a half you've been now?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. So almost a year been in this role. I thought it was even more than that. Because I know in this role you've really thrived. And how is becoming an associate and joining a team of docs? I actually like to call it, we have a clinical team in our office. So it's not like we walk around and be like, hello there, associate Dylan. Hello there, associate Ashley. No, we're the clinical team of docs, a doc team. And how is joining that doc team allowed you to focus more on chiropractic itself rather than that business side of it?
It's just a lot, like it's really just allowed us to really collaborate in our clinical care, like, which I think is so awesome to be able to do that, because there's some times where we still get stuck even in our office with patients and with clinical cases, and like we can all just come from a different fresh perspective of like how can we get to the real pinpoint of creating health for this person or for that kid, which has been so cool to get to experience that and just continually build each other up from there as well. Like has been the coolest thing. Like it's not like we're individually doing our own things. We're literally coming together each and every week, every day, really to just join forces to create as much movement as we can for kids' healing.
Oh, I love that you said that. It's that full focus, right? And you probably heard it as an owner doc if you've gone to a lot of the seminars, how you need to work on the practice and not be so in the practice, right?
Yeah.
Well, the problem is when you work on the practice, or you kind of take that 30,000 foot view back, you're not there able to dive in fully clinically all the time. And there's ways to, adapt your schedule and do that. Some people are called to do that. But it had to be amazing to be able to say, you know what, I can do less of the 30,000 foot view and I can do more of going really deep and diving in clinically. What are some of the things, and this is going to kind of, because we're both docs here and we love the clinical side of it, what are some clinical things you've learned over the last year that really excite you even more so about neurologically focused chiropractic. Because I know when you get to go deeper into that, it's super, super exciting to be like, oh my gosh, this is even cooler than I ever thought it was, because you get to see the power of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard question because there is so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is so much that I've learned over this past year, but I think it's like just the opportunity of how we can adjust these kids and how we can do so much more for them. And it's not like it is a specific technique, but it's that like it's the 5-step framework, right? It's even more magnified for me now to really see like through the scans, through specific techniques and the sequence of that, to really just like helping them really achieve that through whatever the measures may be. And I don't know if that's a really great answer of what you're looking for, but yeah.
No, I see it in you. So it's, I see it in you being able to dive in and have that full on focus. And that's not to say you didn't, you still don't help with other sides of the business too. I know you're huge in community connections and engaging the community. Is there anything you miss about owning a practice?
I would say it's the control, I would say that's been the hardest piece of letting go, is like having control of something, but that's about it, honestly. Yeah. Like I don't have to manage a team, anymore. I mean, here we kind of all work together and communication is there, which is super awesome. But it's not like management, which is super cool. So right. Honestly, there's not much I do miss about owning. It's just like, there's just so much peace right now and there's less worry, less stress, about that. And there's just more focus on the clinical care piece.
Yeah. And I still think you do such a great job of bringing the ownership to it, right? Is ownership can mean a lot of things, and you still own your job every single day.
Yeah.
You still own your the patients that you see every single day. You still own the interactions with the team. You still own your community connections. And so, at PwC, we always like to say it's like we're all owners of what we do. We're just maybe not the ones that have to sign the paychecks, or have some of the tough conversations, right? Even though we do have those as well, because we're all in it for the good of it and for the kids. But it's very much so nice to be able to fully focus on. And I love that you use that word at peace. One of the things I get to constantly talk to with docs that work on these clinic teams is the piece about knowing that you're in it together. It's so often when you might be out on that chiropractic island and, you're seeing that one patient daily or 3 times a week and you're, fighting through that care plan and you're literally up at night be like, gosh, I hope they come in tomorrow and they're doing better because their scans look better. I'm doing everything right. I clear in primaries, but they're just not seeing it right. And you've table talked it and everything. Like, how nice would it be to have another doc come and be like, you know what, could you just adjust them 2 or 3 times and just tell me what you see?
Yeah.
So that we can share that, so we can share that level of care so that it's not all on my shoulders. And I think that's one of the things I love is it's very much a team approach where we're all owning the clinical care and it's not something that just falls all on yourself with it.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit to students.
Yeah.
And this isn't, obviously, looking back, everything's hindsight 2020. And obviously you learned a lot through opening a practice. So you probably wouldn't say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you probably wouldn't be like, okay, I wouldn't do this again. But what do you have to say to students who are deciding between ownership and becoming an associate?
Yeah. I would say like, just don't question it. Like if you want to go own, you're going to crush it. But if you want to associate, don't think that it's not going to be a great opportunity or you're not going to be less than others who are going out to open their own office, right? And that's where that humility piece comes in, because I think like what you said, like I didn't think there would be so much growth in an associateship role, but like I've seen that so much, and we're not even in a year in yet, right? And there's been so much growth within my clinical excellence, how I'm able to be a better team member, be a better clinical care doctor as well. And so I think like if you're taking the right steps, right measurements of reviewing if that associateship is going to be best for you, it's going to be great for you as well, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I love that because really if we were to map out the roadmap for success in neurologically focused pediatric chiropractic, there may be some people that graduate, students that graduate into doctors that are like, you know what, I feel called to open. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for it. by all means go for it. But there is something incredibly valuable about taking that first 2 to 3 years in practice and saying, you know what, I'm going to hone my craft. Because let's be honest, right? Like even in the medical world, they have a residency and they have more training to it, right? And so there is this side of it where we could all use more training. We could all use more focus. I still remember my first year in, I was head down, got thrown into it, got thrown in the pool, if you will, where I'm having to communicate in the toughest cases, having to adjust the toughest cases alongside great docs. And so you got to quickly rise to that occasion as an associate. And you learn so much your first 2 to 3 years in practice that then when you're like, okay, I've done that. Now I feel called to go the other direction and open my own practice. Clinically, you're ready for it. And then you're like, okay, well, now I can figure out how to do the books and how I can do marketing and all that. And so, you know, the perfect journey would be spending that time in a PX office where you fully understand the power of the clinic, of the results you can get with chiropractic by going all in, because you really just, you can probably say this as docs now that are, you know, 5 to 8 years in, it's, you don't know what you don't know when you go to open. And you still don't, you know, next year we'll sit down here and do another podcast and we'll be like, holy cow, this is way bigger than we even thought it was a year ago. And so I think that pathway is okay too. It's okay to change your mind and change your direction. And I'm proud of you for doing that, because I think it's so hard when you get comfortable, where you get set up in a community where things are going, right? When you're making revenue, when you're, you know, making a profit, it's easy to be like, well, this is what I made, I'm just going to keep going here. And then we look for other avenues to maybe fulfill us. But you went full in to chiropractic. So last question here. How would you encourage someone that might be stuck, feeling burned out, they're not sure if ownership is right, and they're hesitant to make the switch? What would you say to encourage that person?
I would just say, like, take time getting away from your practice and just really sit and think like, do you enjoy what you're doing? Are you giving your best to your patients? Or are they getting the best version of you? Or are you kind of feeling like really fatigued, really exhausted, where you can't give the best version of yourself to them because ownership is just taking over control of you, basically, right? And you're not taking control of it. And I would say if that's the case, then really step into thinking about going into an associateship, whatever that looks like. And there's no pressure in that either. It's really just about what's going to bring the best version of yourself out of you so that you can serve your community even better at a higher level as well.
That's really powerful that you said that. It's being the best you can be. And, you know, I'm really proud to call you a friend and a colleague and, you know, someone that's along this journey with us in helping kids and families, because you embody that. And like so many chiropractors in this work, we've had to make the hard decision, right? The hard decision to do what's best. And I think the key word that comes to my mind, you know, for you is you were patient about it. Like, you were very patient. You spent the time trying this. You weren't afraid to be patient again and say, you know what, like, this isn't right. I'm going to maybe feel like start at square one, but now you're working and it's going faster probably than expected a year in. So if there's one thing that we take away from this episode, it's that there's not just one size fits all career path in chiropractic. Owning a practice, it might be the right fit for some. But if you feel called to serve more than just, you know, that management role, an associate might be right for you. And it's not stepping down, it's stepping in to that true calling that's right for you. And so here's what I would really challenge everybody. And this is kind of the summary of, I think, exactly what you said, Dr. Dillon, is breaking that stigma that being an associate can be just as fulfilling, financially rewarding, impactful as owning a clinic. Here you are a year in and you are absolutely thriving in your role. You've taken on other roles in the practice. You're being an owner of other roles. You know, in the corporate world, we call that you're a VP, a VP of community connections. With that, you've gotten to know yourself more. And, you know, I love that word you used of peace. So you know what excites you more than what drains you. And then the third thing you did is you really took action. So today, if you're a student, you know, explore those associate opportunities alongside the ownership opportunities. If you're an owner that feels stuck, think about it. Like Dr. Dillon said, take a step back and explore that role and it might align more with your passion, what you think. So no matter where you're at in this journey, the most important thing I know Dr. Dylan and I can both agree on is you have to be in the right career spot that supports your passion for chiropractic. And as PX docs, we are so passionate about helping kids and families with the power of neurologically focused chiropractic that we love to find that balance. And I know you've done that over the past year here. If you had any closing thoughts, what would you want to tell people about your role and just where you're at right now, and to kind of help them and encourage them on their journey?
Yeah, it just goes back to just kind of surrendering it basically, and like just thinking about the bigger purpose, bigger mission and vision, that it's about those kids, right? It's not about you. It's not about what role you're in. It's about how you can serve more, serve better, and bigger as well, because every kid counts.
I love it. If you're not watching this and you're listening to it, Dr. Dylan's shirt says "Called to Serve," and that's the perfect thing to wear every single day in practice. So if this episode spoke to you, don't just keep this to yourself. Like, take action, start to dwell on it, make the changes. It's all about having that career that supports your passion for neurologically focused chiropractic journey. We all have a story. I want to thank Dr. Dylan for coming on and sharing his story. Kind of the road less traveled in a way, but extremely powerful that you did that and you took the step and went really above yourself and found out, okay, this is the right thing for my strengths, my passion, and your vision. So until next time, folks, keep serving, keep growing, keep making impact. We'll see you back here soon on the Family Practice Podcast.
Hey, Dr. Tony here, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to the Family Practice Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a thing. Also, if you're looking for more content from us, you can absolutely subscribe to our newsletter, watch exclusive episodes on YouTube, and dive deep into the articles and blogs on our website. All of this is linked in today's show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.